He had his gun, so he just swung it open.
I start to notice that, the atmosphere feels a little bit weird.
First thing he seen was this 6.5 foot tall, broad shoulder, dark hair. That freaked him out.
We hadn't talked to her about like life and death and what any of that means. She's 3 years old,
So we turned around. Suddenly there's a whole tree falling across the road.
And she was describing to us that, there was a deceased person that she could see visually.
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, where we tackle the ever-expanding history and mystery of monsters and supernatural madness every Monday. You can find us at CryptidClues.ca for more information, or even check out exclusive content and support us at patreon.com/CryptidClues.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cryptid Clues. I am your host Taylor, and before we get into today's topic, I firstly just want to apologize because I know everyone's used to Mondays being the days that episodes drop, and unfortunately this week just got the better of me, personal life, family, all that kind of fun stuff, and it was just hard to kind of buckle down and get my research underway, get my notes all sorted, and all that fun stuff. But nevertheless, better late than never, and well, we're within the 48-hour mark, so here we are with this week's new episode. So a couple of plugs. Last week we explored the tale of Matthew the Hairy Man, and before that we covered the mysterious life formations that were appearing above the Canadian prairies. But with today's episode, we're going to be looking into demons, possession, exorcisms, kind of picking up sort of where we left off on our previous episode that was acting like an introductory into the practice of exorcisms. Before we get into that, if you have any questions, comments, or want to reach out and share with us anything you like, you can do so by emailing us, CryptidClues@gmail.com. Additionally, you can find us on our social media channels, Twitter, X, not Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all that fun stuff. But without further delay, let's get into this. Now, as I said, a few weeks ago, we took an introductory look into exorcisms. We talked about what an exorcism is, what demons are, and the history that they both share. And some of these cases go back centuries. But in today's episode, we're going to start with demons. Now, belief in demons is ancient. It is, of course, not fact, but largely assumed to originate back in the Paleolithic age, which is essentially just the Stone Age. Now, a rough estimate puts us at around 4,000 religions on planet Earth. That is a significant amount, and most, if not all, have some common belief or fear of the demonic. In many of these beliefs, demons are independent operators, with some being responsible specifically for different types of evils like destructive natural events or horrible diseases like plagues and whatnot. So, of course, the belief exists as well that you have this principal demon, this devil called Satan, which is just one of the many names that is affiliated with this demon, this entity. This demon, this devil, has a plethora of subordinates, other demons basically working beneath him, and these lesser spirits, they spread and conduct horrible acts on behalf of the devil, on behalf of Satan. But where do demons come from? Historical interpretations and beliefs show us that as early as the time of ancient Mesopotamians, they believe in a place deemed the underworld, which is the home to all of these demons, these entities. Hades, hell, all different terms that basically refer to the same thing. And this is just something that's spread across the ages, as different interpretations are referring to this horrible, horrible place. So it was these demons that reside there that sometimes left to terrorize mortals on Earth. And as we alluded to earlier, the belief of this terrorism on Earth assumed many causes of natural disasters, plague, famine, and again, caused by sinister acts of demons and entities. But we also have one more act of terrorism. This is something, again, that we've talked to in the past. One of the most personal, most invasive, and most traumatizing acts that, in my opinion, that could be committed is possession. And a fair bit ago, but accessible in our Encounters playlist, you could find an episode titled Demonic Forces. And in this episode, we were joined by a special guest from Mexico. And she told us that there was these weird ongoings in her home due to the belief of a close family member being possessed by a demon. And this wasn't just the actions of one person, but was the feelings emanating throughout the home, and basically one part of the home that was acting almost as if it was like a ground zero of this negative energy that was emanating. And they had help that actually was coming to their home to help rectify the situation of their own ritual practice. But it was a great discussion, and it led me to thinking, what is the goal to possess a human being? Is it to cause pain, gain some form of advantage, or just to gain power in some dark and demented sort of way? So let's start with the basics here, and I'm going to try and keep this pretty cohesive. But a soul, the ultimate prize as deemed in movies of Hollywood, real life religions that demons covet beyond anything else, is the soul, that essence of a human being, the spiritual or immaterial part of a human being or animal, that the one thing about us that is deemed immortal, transcends after death. And in many religious and philosophical traditions, this soul is the spiritual essence of a person. This includes one's identity, personality, and memories, something that can survive physical death. But I have found some claims that a soul is ultimately worthless to a dark entity. Of course, movies and cinema have this claim that, and I quote here, they want what they do not have. But some religious individuals talk about how it just fits their MO, their mission objective of making a lesser being suffer as they themselves are suffering, as they are outside of God's realm. But there is one interesting thought I found, and it was that perhaps this is just a ploy to decrease the more beings and overall strength that God or any deity of belief would inherit by bringing people into a damned state, into purgatory or an underworld like we mentioned, thus causing a degree of spiritual injury to the powers that be above us. This can ultimately lead to three possible ideas, at least that's how I see it, as to why a human soul is so coveted: sadistic intent, self-preservation, and lastly, a sinister attempt to make God or any such deity suffer, which in retrospect, it makes absolute sense. If you love all of mankind, your creation, but then you're to experience that loss when a human soul is headed to the underworld for eternal suffering, it's similar to being a parent. Well, not similar, it is being a parent. If you lose a child, as stated, we're God's children, and you lose a child, that degree of loss is very, very painful, and it weighs a heavy toll on one's heart. So I myself, I'm not a very religious individual, and I'll probably mention that a few times as I try to decipher and explain this to you guys, but I can definitely share certain sentiments that are mentioned. Reuben's always definitely been the more religious individual, and he's been very good at kind of guiding me along certain things and certain topics. But I thought I would try this because he's been busy, so it's been hard to kind of boggle him down for an episode lately. But I digress. So the loss, as we were talking about, now it's something I'm going to speak to regarding spiritual practices and or exorcisms. Back in 2021, there was a 3-year-old that had passed away during an exorcism in a small Pentecostal church in San Jose, California. Ultimately, the cause of death was due to a lack of oxygen during the exorcism. It was leading to 3 of the child's family members actually being charged with child abuse. And I'm going to tread lightly on this because I was not there, and I dare not impose my own "this is what happened" scenario. That would be very, very wrong. But I myself, like I said, I'm not a religious man. So let's say for a moment, however, angels, demons, God, Satan are all as real as you and me right now. Any demon would latch at an opportunity to create such a negative situation. And if this is that case, you could say this demon or entity had accomplished just that: the death of a child at the hands of their family, creating this horrendously negative, powerful area and event. Deaths during the process of an exorcism is sadly nothing new. There have been several deaths that have been recorded occurring during an exorcism ritual in the past. For example, 1976, a woman in Germany died of dehydration and malnutrition after a period of exorcisms conducted by the Catholic Church that lasted over 10 months. We have another incident in 2005. A Romanian Orthodox nun had passed away during an ambulance trip following an exorcism that went very, very wrong. Now, being such a controversial topic of discussion, there is the other side to mention now. If God, angels, and demons are all to be dismissed as not real, Now, you then have an exorcism acting as an illusion, working on people experiencing symptoms of possession, thus attributing to a placebo effect and the power of suggestion. And I say that because I think it's important to look at it from the spiritual position and then look at it from the, I dare say scientific, but I like to look at things as maybe spiritual and science kind of combined. That's my biased standpoint that I will keep out of this episode. But when you look at the two different positions, because I feel like society is kind of cut right down the middle in that regard, where people look at it this way and people look at it that way, at least when it comes to religion. So I digress. I spoke to this in our exorcism introduction, where you can have people in a negative state of mind, low self-esteem, severe depression. Between the two scenarios, you'll see this either being just that, low self-esteem manifesting in a negative state of being, and this just results in a deduction that a person is demonically or spiritually possessed and requires an exorcism. Or we're dealing with genuine evil spirits, and the power of words really do have the power to defeat evil spirits. I see it as a black and white situation, A or B. And I definitely stand behind the fact that words themselves can absolutely be powerful tools. I think that there is belief and intent that you enforce those words with, and you have power. And it is such words that I will quote now by the great Albus Percival Dumbledore from Harry Potter. And I quote, "Words are, in my not so humble opinion, our most inexhaustible source of magic, capable of both inflicting injury and remedying it." End quote. That statement, it sits with me, and it's one of my favorite quotes from Harry Potter. But in closing on the exorcism portion here, this ritual has been pretty rare in Western civilizations and often regarded with embarrassment by Catholic groups, and I can understand why. When you have Hollywood reshaping and capitalizing on the idea of such a ritual, Hollywood aside, of course, exorcisms have become more mainstream, though, in Catholic culture as well as evangelical and Pentecostal cultures. Back in 2013, there was a poll that was conducted and found that around 51% of Americans actually believe in demonic possession. But at the same time, the Catholic Church attendance continued to hit new lows. And this reflects a large pattern of cultural polarization in America, which essentially means segregation and division amongst the population. In this case, it's the religious population. Now, that date obviously is over a decade ago, and now that we have passed the 2023 mark, that percentage has grown to nearly 60%. And yes, you guessed it, religious attendance has still been on the decline. So maybe I'm being a bit bold speaking here when I say this, but when you look at the next generation in Western society, specifically Canada, you have a group of individuals who prioritize work, cash, or friends, and that's conducted in recent studies, thus leaving little room for any other major obligations or commitments on top of pre-existing ones that aren't those top three priorities. I understand that. You know, you go out, you go to the gym, you got your own hobbies, you got your friends, all that kind of stuff, and you have these other main priorities that are very important. And it's the way society and Western culture has been shifted because we have to prioritize certain things to help sustain ourselves, our mental health, our financial health, all those different things so that we can continue to grow and we continue to enjoy our lives right now. And I think it's very different from certain other cultures around the world, of course. Western culture is a very, very interesting developing society and civilization. So people will have that opinion and belief of demons and spirits, but not necessarily the time nor interest in the commitment to oppose it. And this is echoed by a man named Father Vincent Lambert. During an interview, he states regarding an exorcism that, and I quote, "It's not just about casting evil out. One has to want to invite God in. I'm encountering so many people today that believe they're dealing with the demonic, but they want nothing to do with God. They just want me to fix their problem, but they don't really want to make a commitment to God and to grow in faith, holiness, and virtue." End quote. So where I stand with that is ultimately Canadians have their priorities already. And it's hard to throw something in there that can be quite demanding on your life when you are giving your life to money, friends, and all that other prioritized stuff that North Americans seem to be so invested with. And North American society, it's busy. We don't have a lot of downtime as much as we used to, and so it creates this very demanding relationship between our personal lives and things that we enjoy. And so when you bring in another factor here like faith and religion, there are individuals that are great at capitalizing and committing to that, and there are other individuals that just know that their priorities lie elsewhere. And so it's totally justifiable, because I believe myself in entities and demons, but I myself have not given myself to God. But I can understand the problem that this man is experiencing when people just see him as a means to fix their solution, whereas you could learn how to deal with this yourself. And I say that I mean that in a positive way. You could call a guy to come fix your washing machine, or you could learn and take the time to not invite the washing machine in, but understand the washing machine, understand the components that are required to fix it, and really make that step towards believing in yourself that you could fix it. And taking in that time, maybe that's a poor comparison, but that's something that, at least the way I see it. However, we're going to move towards that topic of demons and spirits again here. Now, there is a plethora of coverage on this topic, and upon looking into it, I found it exceptionally overwhelming and mind-boggling. So bear with me as I try to navigate throughout this topic and create something, again, basic and baseline that is still cohesive, that we can learn and speak to moving forward. So starting with the Old Testament, which is essentially the first part of the Christian Bible that tells about the Jewish people, their history, and God's words to them in the time before Jesus Christ was born. Now, it's worth stating that the existence of demons as inherently malicious spirits within the Old Testament text is absent. There are evil spirits mentioned, but they are assumed not to be demons, since it's not revealed in the writings that they serve and oppose any specific governing deity. However, if we look at the New Testament, which is basically a record of the life, teachings, and mission of Jesus Christ and the ministry of his disciples, throughout the New Testament, demons appear 55 times and 46 times in reference to demonic possession or exorcisms. And since the early days of Christianity, demonology has developed from a basic acceptance of demons into a very complex study that's expanded from concepts originating from Jewish demonology and Christian scriptures. Now, these mentions of demons being fallen angels is something debated in Islam. Contemporary Muslim scholars have argued even if fallen angels are considered, they are conceptually different from fallen angels in Christianity due to the fact that they remain at the service of God and not one of God's enemies. In Christianity, however, it is believed that devils are fallen angels who renounce their loyalty to God, and in Islam, it is God who has dismissed the fallen angels. And now with these fallen angels, in closing, with both demons and exorcisms, a callback to our words have power discussion. There is the power of the name. And this was something I first learned about watching the Conjuring 2 movie. Well, of course, it's a Hollywoodized film for cinemas. It does source from Ed and Lorraine Warren's case files. And it was in that film that they discovered the name of a demon and uses its name to gain power over the demon. And such a concept, it made me curious, and I inquired further, and ultimately, what I found, to know a demon's name gives you power, authority, and dominion over them. So as a believer in Christ, scripture writings state that when you abide in him, he also abides in you, thus allowing his power to channel through you. And while all demons know their names, one would be very hard-pressed to want to share it with you. But through the power of words, faith, and perseverance, you can command their name to be revealed to you. That it would take a lot of self-belief and openness to accepting Jesus Christ. So what we have learned about this so far is demons are an ancient part of our history. Whether it's newly established religions or consistent cultural division, the increase in demonic possession interest continues to grow, while, as we mentioned before, church attendance continues to be on the drop. And lastly, I found it interesting, there was one little thing that I read, that it's possible demons are responsible for so many new religions that are propping up all over the place, left, right, and center, and in hopes of maybe kind of steering people away from specific beliefs that actually have power to harm demonic entities and whatnot and pull people away from their true faith of God. And I can understand the danger in that. I believe that there's been a few crusades that have happened in our history over my religion instead of yours. So I'm not going to touch upon that, but I do think that it's interesting. We're at a time when there's so many new religious beliefs being discovered and shared all across the world. So ultimately, though, I think it's important for us just to remind ourselves that we need to have good mental health, eat healthy, be healthy. And if we ever feel like we're alone or isolated, just know that we're not, because whatever dark entities that exist out there, they thrive on that. They want to find you. They want you to be alone. They're going to try and make you feel like you're alone. Just remember that you're not alone. You know, if you need someone to talk to, reach out to friends, reach out to family. There are always people there that are always going to be able to help you. And we're in this together. We're human beings. So I'm curious what you all think. Do you believe in demons, spiritual entities? How do you interpret what they are? Do you believe in the power of an exorcism? What kind of practices do you think exist out there that can help work with these? The power of words even. So you can send us an email at cryptidclues@gmail.com. Tell us your thoughts. I'd love to read and love to learn and love to hear about this. So other than that, you can reach us on our social media channels, X, YouTube, Facebook. And until next time, everyone, take care and stay safe.